Everyone knows the story of Daniel, a man who was thrown into a den of lions because he refused to stop praying. And most people hear that story and walk away with a simple conclusion: be faithful, stand strong, trust God under pressure. And those things are true, but they're not the full story. Because Daniel wasn't targeted just because he had faith. There were many people in Babylon who believed different things, different gods, different traditions, different ideas. Belief alone wasn't what made him dangerous. The real issue was something much deeper. It was consistency. Daniel didn't change. He didn't adapt to survive. He didn't slowly shift his behavior to fit the environment around him. While everyone else learned how to move carefully, how to say the right things, how to protect their position, Daniel stayed the same, in public and in private. And that made him different. Not louder, not more aggressive, not more powerful, just unmoved. And that kind of person is hard to deal with, because systems built on control depend on people being adjustable. They rely on compromise, on pressure, on fear, on subtle influence. They don't need you to be openly disobedient. They just need you to bend a little. And most people do, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, over time. They learn when to speak and when to stay silent. They learn what to say and what to avoid. They learn how to survive. But Daniel never made that shift, and the people around him noticed. The officials watched him closely, not because he was causing problems, but because he wasn't. There were no obvious weaknesses, no scandals, no mistakes. Nothing they could point to and say, "There, that's the issue." And that created a different kind of tension, because when someone can't be corrupted, they expose everyone who can. Daniel's life became a kind of mirror, and the people in power didn't like what they saw reflected back. So they stopped looking for flaws and started looking for a way in. Not through his actions, but through his identity. If they couldn't catch him doing something wrong, they would create a situation where doing what was right would be considered wrong. So they built a system, a law that seemed simple on the surface. For 30 days, no one could pray to any god or man except the king. And it sounded harmless, even respectful, a temporary show of loyalty. But underneath, it was something else entirely. It was a trap. Because they understood something the king didn't. Daniel wouldn't adjust. He wouldn't pause. He wouldn't compromise, even temporarily. Not because he was trying to prove something, not because he was trying to rebel, but because that's who he already was. And when the law was signed, everything became clear. This wasn't about religion. It wasn't about politics. It was about control. And Daniel had just been placed in a position where obedience to God would look like disobedience to authority. And that's where most people hesitate. That's where people start negotiating. They tell themselves, it's only temporary. No one will know. It doesn't really matter this time. They adjust just enough to stay safe. But Daniel didn't negotiate. He didn't overthink it. He didn't wait to see what others would do. He went home, opened his window, and prayed. Just like he always had. Not in secret, not in defiance, but in consistency. And that moment is where most people place the weight of the story. But the truth is, that moment didn't create anything new. It revealed what had already been built. Because real pressure doesn't form character, it exposes it. Daniel didn't suddenly become bold. He didn't suddenly become faithful. He simply continued. And that continuation is what made him impossible to control. Because when someone's identity is already decided, external pressure loses its power. And that's what made Daniel dangerous. Not influence, not authority, not rebellion, but a life that had already made its decision, before the pressure ever came. The lion's den wasn't the test. It was the outcome, the natural result of a life that refused to bend. And in a system built on control, the most dangerous person is not the loudest one, or the strongest one, or the one trying to fight the system. It's the one who doesn't need to, because they've already decided who they are.